Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about my favorite reads of 2023. I have 10 of them for you guys. I read 64 books this year, so I thought 10 was a good amount to talk about. I'm not going to go super in depth with my review or opinion on them because I did do that in other book review videos that I'll link for you guys to watch if you're curious. But yeah, and then I'll be going over them in a chronological order as well. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the list. So hold on, first off let me pull up my list so I can make sure I go in order. So the first book is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I didn't physically read this book. I listened to it on Audible, which was actually very nice, but I'm excited. My best friend got me the book for Christmas, so I'm excited to actually read it this time because I feel like it's different when you read it for yourself versus when you listen to it. This is Colleen, I think, is it her only thriller? I think it is, but it was a very good book. If you guys have seen any of my other book reviews, you know I'm obsessed with Colleen Hoover. So I definitely like this book. So this book is about Lowen, who goes to stay with Jeremy Crawford, and who's the husband of the best-selling author Verity Crawford, which is where the name Verity comes from. And it's about the things that unfold in the house while she's staying there with them. It's one of her standalones. It's not in a sequel or anything, but it's a standalone romantic thriller, and probably one of my favorite reads by Colleen Hoover. In the top 3 of my Colleen Hoover books for sure. But if you guys haven't read this and you like thrillers, I would definitely recommend this one. Second on the list is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I'm not sure how you say his last name. And this is about Alicia Berenson, who is in a psych ward, and she refuses to talk. I think it's for 5-6 years until she starts working with this criminal psychotherapist Theo Faber, and he ends up finally getting her to crack. But the story that unfolds when he finally gets her to crack is pretty crazy. She ended up going to a psych ward because she killed her husband, and she went silent after that. She never said anything. She didn't defend herself. She didn't do anything. She just went completely silent. So they ended up finding her guilty and sending her to a psych ward since she wouldn't talk to anybody. And that's when Theo comes in and starts working with her because no one else made any progress with her, so they kind of sent him in to see if he can't. I did not expect the ending on this one. Honestly, it was very good. I liked it. So again, another thriller. If you're into that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend this one. Next one on my list is The Masterpiece by Francine Rivers, and this is the first book we read for my book club that I'm in with my friend Valerie, and it is a Christian fiction. And I didn't think I would like it because I've never read anything in that genre before, but it's actually a very beautiful book. I really liked it. It says the ghosts of his past hold him captive. Her missteps bring her to his door. So it's basically a love story, but it doesn't have any of the spiciness and stuff in it, obviously, because it's a Christian one. But the 2 main characters are Roman Velasco and Grace Moore. He's a famous artist. She's his assistant, and it's kind of like that falling for your boss kind of thing. But the story that plays out in between them is actually very beautiful. It is on the longer side. It's almost 500 pages, but when you're reading it, it doesn't even seem like that. I feel like I read it pretty quickly. This was one of the ones I was up late in the middle of the night trying to finish reading. But yeah, it is on the longer side, but it was a very good read. So The Masterpiece by Francine Rivers is next. And then next up, I read this one on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical book, but it's Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. And it's about this main character named Kenna, who got out of prison after 5 years for, basically she fled the scene of a crime that ended up killing her boyfriend. And she was pregnant at the time. She gave birth in prison. So the story is about her coming out and trying to build a relationship with her daughter, but the daughter went to stay with her boyfriend's parents, who obviously hate her because they blame her for what happened. So yeah, so it's about kind of like that story that unfolds, and I think it's because I'm a mom myself, but that story like really pulled on my heartstrings. Colleen did a beautiful job of like illustrating everything, honestly, and you really bond with Kenna and feel bad for her, because all she wants, like, she doesn't even want her daughter to know that, like, hey, I'm your mom. She just wants to see her, and they won't even let her do that. And I just can't imagine, like, being so close to my kids and physically not being able to see them. So it was a beautiful story about how all of that transpires, and she ends up falling in love with her deceased boyfriend's best friend, and so all that comes into play too. But it was a very good book. It, like I said, it does pull at your heartstrings. It is more on it's a YA romance. I believe there are a few spicy scenes in there, but nothing too crazy, because Colleen can get pretty intense sometimes, and I feel like those weren't really too intense. But yeah, so Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. You guys will sense a theme here. There's a few more Colleen Hoover books on here that I'll talk about. But moving forward, the next one is The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. And this is about a wealthy couple, Marissa and Matthew Bishop, who seem to have it all until Marissa is unfaithful to Matthew, and then they end up working with a therapist named Avery. But as Marissa and Matthew are working through her infidelity, a lot more unfolds, and the twist that came at the end, I honestly did not expect. I was just sitting there like, what? So it was a good book. I did like this one. It's told from two different points of views, Avery and Marissa, sorry. So if you like that kind of thing, that is in there. I've read a few books by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, and this one's probably my favorite of theirs. But yeah, so if you haven't read this one, I would definitely recommend that one as well. The next book I also read on Kindle Unlimited, and it's called Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And it's kind of like a Grumpy Sunshine thing. And it's about two main characters, Naomi and Knox. So Naomi moves to this town of Knock Me Out, Virginia. And she runs into Knox, he's kind of like a douchebag, I'm not gonna lie. It did take a while for me to come around to Knox, because I understand, like, the whole Grumpy Sunshine thing, but he's a little too grumpy. He was just a dick for no reason, and it's kind of just like, all right, sir, settle down. But basically, Naomi and Knox end up having this like complicated love story. And this is actually book 1 of 2. The second book is coming out next year, and it's called Things We Hide from the Light. So I'm kind of excited to read part 2. I did like this story, but it was a little on the long side. It was 572 pages. So it's definitely one of the longer reads. I feel like it could have been a little bit shorter, but at the end I did end up liking the story a lot. So that was another one of my favorites for this year. And then the next ones, I'll just talk about them simultaneously. One of them is I've listened to on Audible, because Book Talk sold out this book in stores everywhere. So by the time I wanted to talk about it, I couldn't find it anywhere, so I just listened to it on Audible. The first one is It Ends With Us, and the second one is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. Shocker. And it's basically about Lily. The main character's name is Lily. In the first book, It Ends With Us, she falls for this guy named Ryle, and it's kind of like a present day and a past day. And when she reflects about her past, she talks about this guy named Atlas, who was her first love. And she, like, instead of journaling or going to therapy, she would write letters to Ellen, because that was her favorite TV show growing up. So her flashbacks are like her rereading all her letters that she wrote to Ellen, and then you kind of get a a view into what her and Atlas's relationship was like and how they came about and all this stuff. And then it comes with present day, where she has Ryle, who she ends up falling for, and they get married, all this stuff. And then after that, Atlas comes back into her life, and it turns out that Ryle is not a good guy. And he ends up putting Lily in some iffy circumstances, and the book ends with her deciding to end the relationship with Ryle because she has a daughter, and she didn't want her daughter to go through what she went through as a kid. So that's how it ends with us. And then it starts with us as kind of like the continuation of what happens further with Lily, Atlas, and Ryle. I was a little hesitant for this book because you guys know sometimes sequels aren't as great as the originals, but it was a very good sequel to this, to It Ends With Us. So if you guys haven't read those two books, I highly recommend those. They are considered YA romance novels, just so you know. And the next one, it's my last physical book that I have, but it's called The Hunting Wives by May Cobb, and it's about this girl named Sophie O'Neill who left behind her career and the big city Chicago life to move to a country, and she ends up meeting Margot Banks, who's a socialite who's a part of elite club known as the Hunting Wives. So like every Friday, these girls get together and just go shooting their guns in the wolves in the woods. And it's about her obsession that she ended up having with Margot and what ends up unfolding from all of that. So it is kind of a thriller. I did like it. It was a page turner. I read it pretty quickly, honestly. But yeah, so I did like this one if you kind of like that whole city. I don't even know what I'm saying. So I did like this one. So if you haven't read this one yet, I would recommend it. There are a lot of spicy scenes though, just so you know, as like a warning. But yeah, so I did like this one. And then the last few were on my Kindle, again for Kindle Unlimited. So the next one is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. It's another thriller. Like I said, my list is basically all YA romance and thriller novels. But this one is a thriller. And it's basically about... It says, when you read this book, you will make many assumptions. You will assume you are reading about a jealous ex-wife. You will assume she is obsessed with her replacement, a beautiful younger woman who is about to marry the man they both love. You will assume you know the anatomy of this tangled love triangle. Assume nothing. And that's all I'm going to say about that, to leave you guys hanging. So if you haven't read that one, go ahead and read it. That one and The Golden Couple are like very good thrillers. I love the way that Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen write together. It's very good. So my last favorite book of the year was called Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. Again, shocker. And it's about the main character named Bea, who goes to live with her father after they find her. She comes home and finds her mother dead from an overdose. So she goes to live with her father, and she ends up meeting this guy there named Samson. And it's about how their love story ends up unfolding, and Samson ends up not being who she thought he was. And Colleen Hoover did a very good job writing such a sweet love story. And they basically ended up bonding because they both have been outcasts their whole lives, and so they really ended up bonding over that. But yeah, so it does come with the twist at the end, but it does have a happy ending, so that's all that really matters. So yeah, so those were my top 10 books for 2022. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys with lots more books next year. Bye.